I've been scarred and I've been bruised. I have learned just what to do. I need to leave my past behind me. I need to look to the future. No matter what will come, no matter what I've done, I know just what to do. And that's all because of you.
Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Welcome. Thank you so much to the new people that have joined the family. The numbers are growing. We really appreciate the shares. We appreciate the tags. We appreciate talking about it. Good news, I've been bullied enough to actually open a Twitter account. So I do have a Twitter account now. It's my full name, Ms Z Mavumengwana, and my Twitter handle is @ZiandaMav. So please do, the channel's link is in my bio. But the platform belongs to me, so that I don't have to open a new account every time I have a new project, and so on and so forth. So please do follow, and I will follow back. That's what the person that opened the account said to me, my brother. But don't be rude. When people follow you, you must follow back. So I've been schooled. Please follow us, and we will follow you back. Last time we were here, we shot the heavy, the money discussion, and as we had informed you guys, it is a series, and we are back with part 2 of that series in something that excites me so much. Drum roll! Drum roll! Today we have a guest, as I promised you guys, and my guest is phenomenal. And I love you guys. Like, if you knew who's my guest, like knew, as we are about to, you would know that I got you if I'm willing to drag this person all the way from Grahamstown to Port Elizabeth to have this chat with you. But it is an extension of this conversation of money we've been having, and I thought it might be worthwhile to bring somebody that has done an alternative. That's what the channel is about. Share maps, ask how other people are doing it, so that we don't fall victim to the same mistakes. My guest today has done exactly that. Her name is Tina Ubvelela, and she's got a bio this long. Guys, she's got a bio this long. Tina owns 3 properties, guys. I feel like first things first, Tina owns 3 properties. She bought her first property, I think you were 26, right? Yeah, so she bought her first property when she was 26, and all 3 she obtained before she was 30. She actually turned 30 earlier this year. She's actually an academic by profession. I'm just saying that so that you guys know she's not rich. She didn't have like win the lottery or have a set up trust fund. She has an ordinary job. She's a statistics lecturer at Rhodes University, and she runs a township digs in Grahamstown, and she runs a hostel for girls in Grahamstown, and her first property was a family home. But I'll let Tina explain all of that. Tina's made some beautiful money choices, some difficult money choices, and I thought it may be important to not just hypothesize that these things are possible, but actually hear from the horse's mouth, from the people that did them, how they feel, the price they paid to get those things done, and hopefully people that are watching can be insulated from making the money mistakes that we have made. Now, Tina, guys, it is possible to divert, it is possible to choose the alternative, and she's going to tell us how she did that. And I hope you'll find comfort in the conversation, and you'll find lessons in the conversation. And those who haven't made the mistakes, I hope you can learn and choose a better way than the one most of us have chosen. Tish! Welcome, my friend. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. Hello, YouTube people.
Welcome to the car. Friend, I've introduced you. That's what we know of you. Especially people that follow you from social media. They know the work that you do. They know your tutoring. They know the academy. They know your township digs. But comprehensively, how would you introduce yourself to people that don't know who you are?
Sure. So, I'm Tina Ubvelela, born and bred in Port Elizabeth, in a township called Ubvelela. I was raised by 3 phenomenal women, my mother, my aunt, and my grandmother. I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family, so that's what we know. So business is something that I grew up around, and I think it has made the person that I am today. So I attended school, annual high school up in New Brighton, and then just like any township kid, I was very confused about what to study after high school, and stumbled upon statistics at varsity. So I did my undergrad at UCT, where I went to do a bachelor of science in biotech. I didn't even know what that means.
It sounded cool.
It sounded cool. I'm
cool
like,
enough.
biology, technology mixed together. I mean, what else can be better than this? But yeah, fortunately, stumbled upon statistics, and then I majored in statistics, and that's what I've been doing. So yeah, I was raised by umama nomagazi. So I grew up. The first part of my life I was raised by my grandma and my mom, and then later on, when my mom was struggling financially because my grandma passed away, I then moved in with my aunt. So I lived in Motherwell first, and then lived in New Brighton later on. Hence, I studied in Newell High School in New Brighton. Yeah, that's who I am. I think that's what makes me. It's the people that molded the person that people see today. And the experiences that, I went through, this might be money experiences and non-financial experiences.
Yeah. It sounds like your career choice was in the plan, not originally. The property portfolio you've built and the success that you've built around it, was that part of the plan? Or was that like stroke of luck?
No. I think life in general, my life in particular, I think it has been trial and error, just trying this and seeing that it works and seeing that it doesn't work. So property and just business in general came into the picture, I think because of how I love business in general, right? So for me it's very natural to think about, okay, there's this problem, how do I solve it? And that's what I think marks what an entrepreneur is. It's someone who sees problems and wants to find solutions to them. So property, I fell in love with property through buying my mama house. I was like, yay, man. This experience is quite nice. The searching for a place, the viewing of places, and the thinking around it. I then thought, how can I monetize this? How can I, solve a problem that exists? And not just invest in property for the sake of investing in property. Hence, whenever you talk about anything that I've invested in, it was always solving a particular problem. So, for example, the township digs was a solution around how rentals are expensive for students in Grahamstown, So the thinking there was, here's an NSFAS student, they've got 4,500 rands that they get from the university. And rental in town is actually that amount. And, putting myself in their shoes and saying, if I've got this amount, I wouldn't have survived in this town. So how do we then find a solution of accommodation that is decent, that isn't necessarily at the center of town, especially for people who are comfortable, because most of these students actually come from townships, come from rural areas. So the township isn't really a foreign space for them, a foreign space for them. So that was that solution. And then the hostel also came about me bringing my sister into the Grahamstown space for education and realizing, hey man, I'm paying all these schools boarding fees and I'm not getting what I think I ought to get for this money, I'm feeling like I'm paying for a roof over a head. How do I then create the environment that I think hostel kids actually deserve? So that's how my Krups Academy of Excellence was born.
And I find that interesting because although it wasn't part of a plan, it looks like there's always an instinctive pull towards a couple of things. And I'm asking this because there's also things that don't pull you. Mm-hmm. You've managed to stay away from things that most people have because there just doesn't seem to be a resonance between you and those things. And you've chased that which pulls you. Mm-hmm. I think I'm saying this because some things that people don't know, but Tina doesn't own a vehicle. She doesn't have a car. And she actually lives in one of these properties. So she runs the hostel in Grahamstown, and the back flat of that hostel is her apartment. So it's not like she's got an apartment somewhere. She didn't settle for that life that most of us choose. And obviously, Tina grew up very smart, hence the courses she went to do. And there's always a narrative in terms of an expectation on smart people that when you're done with school, you're going to be this great thing, and the great thing looks like somebody that lives in a really gorgeous apartment or estate. They drive a really nice car. Your intellect almost buys you that. It could have if you wanted to, but you didn't go that route. Mm-hmm. And I want you to share your choices or absence of those choices in terms of how you decided, this pulls me and it looks like in order to get that, I can't get that. And how did you navigate that conflict?
Sure. The conflict is always there. I think the conflict is always there. I remember the first big conflict was where to work after my master's, you know.
Yeah, because your aim was international.
Yeah, so I went to, you know, the US to do my master's. I studied statistics, and the expectation was I was going to stay in the US, work somewhere in Washington, D.C., or go work in Sandton and wear heels.
May also, guys, in case the camera does not show. She's the girl.
So that was the expectation. It was perhaps an internal one, and also one that I could see that this is what people expect of me, you know. And statistics is a very scarce skill in South Africa. So I actually usually say one of the first students I supervised, he went to work and he was earning actually way more than I earn. So imagine someone you've taught, you know, you're like, I've prepared you for this, and they go around, you know, to earn something more than what you earn. So the battle, or rather the internal conflict, started after the masters. So when I came back, so the story of how I came back was I applied for jobs everywhere. So I applied for jobs in the US and also in South Africa. Rejection after rejection. And that was painful. That was really painful. And I think when I look back, the painful experience was really around me wanting to fit into a particular box that it's like fitting a circle into a box and it's just not working. So I usually say I kept on writing, like, you know, motivational, rather recommendation letters to say I'm suitable for this position. And for every job, my story changes. Because as a statistician, you can work anywhere, right? So for a pharmaceutical company, I'll say I'm very passionate about medicine. And I mean, production of pills is my thing. I'm full force, I'm there. And then, you know, an insurance company comes and I'm like, I'm your girl, you know. I'm the person to develop a model to determine Zianda's insurance installment, because I've studied for that, you know. So my degree opened so many doors, and because of that, my story kept on changing. So I couldn't fit myself into any of these streams that it availed to me. And for some reason, education was always something that was sort of part and parcel of me. So at UCT, I tutored. In West Virginia, I tutored. So, but I never linked statistics and education to be one package. So that's what my struggle was when I was, you know, looking for jobs. I was not looking for education jobs because that's not what I studied for. So that was the first big, you know, decision to say, let me go to things that pull me, you know. I remember getting an email to say Ubuntu Education Fund, which was my first job, is launching a program which is there to prepare high school students who come from township schools for varsity. Yay! The excitement I got from that.
Statistician.
The excitement I got from that. Wrote down a proposal for it. Suggested to them, this is how you guys should, you know, launch this program. And I'm distancing myself. They're busy recruiting me, and I'm like, no. For whoever you're going to hire, this is actually what I think they should consider: A, B, and C, and D. And that's when I realized this is where the battle is. I'm having this passion, but I'm also having these things I studied for. So that was the big, you know, decision of saying, let me follow things that actually make sense to me. So I came back, I worked at Ubuntu, and that was also a big struggle. So I've accepted the job now, I'm here. But you know the thing of always wanting to justify.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to explain. Look,
Why
guys. You know, why am I in the dusty streets of Zwide? You know, the colleague from Emma. I studied in the US. And what actually happened after I signed the Ubuntu contract, I got a job in the US, in Washington. So now I always wanted to include that in my story, so that you know I had options. I had options, you know. And I usually say, I think God brought it to me to say, just calm down. There are options. It's just that your path has to go this way. So I came back, had the best time of my life at Ubuntu. Stayed there for about 7 months, and then during that time, I was headhunted by Rhodes University, and things just started to fall into place in terms of where I'm going with this education journey and how the stats fits in. And the stats then fitted in so perfectly when I went to Rhodes, because I was teaching stats, but I was still doing this education stuff. So the decision is a daily thing of saying, I'm going to go for this because this doesn't suit, the brand or the person that I'm trying to define myself to be.
So it's an awareness of who you are.
Exactly.
Basically, it's an awareness of who you are.
And also constantly trying to define who you are, because that changes with time. You evolve as a person, and sometimes it also is about saying no to things that sound great
in the now,
but you're like, they don't fit into what I'm trying to do. They don't fit into the Tina that I'm trying to develop. Right?
Does it hurt sometimes when you have to say no, or has it become an easy thing for you and a quick decision to say, this is A, but I'm trying to build B, and B demands that I give up on A? Or does it actually hurt to say no to A?
Sure. I think it depends on each decision. Sometimes it does hurt. Sometimes it's quite easy. Sometimes it's so camouflaged to be the thing that's suitable for you. But there's always something that stops it. So I'll be, doing a talk. Someone comes to me and say, you'd be, a great person to, come to work for institution, blah, blah, blah. And then something doesn't sit right with the arrangement. And the arrangement changes. For example, now I prefer a space that gives me the flexibility with my time, because I have so many other things, that I do. So if you're going to take away from those things, I then have to sit back and say, what is the price that I have to pay for this to happen? So yeah, it does hurt, but sometimes it just makes sense in retrospect. I always say the dots always connect when you're looking back. When you're looking back, you're like, okay, this is why this didn't happen at this time.
To somebody that's listening superficially, it looks like you just got everything right. It looks like these things fell into place. And people that want what you have often think, well, the reason I couldn't get to XYZ because I had barrier XYZ, and one of those biggest barriers is normally home responsibility. Yeah. And you weren't excused from that, actually. In fact, one of your biggest contributions was home security. The first property you ever bought was the family home. Yeah. Take us through that decision, because you weren't excused from what people term black tax. Yeah. You actually started with that moral responsibility. What was it like? What did you have to do in order to buy? You were quite young and new into the working environment when you bought your mother a house. So there's been barriers that other black young professionals have as well in your journey, but obviously you have what you have, meaning you found a way to overcome it. And I'd like you to share that map for someone else that's watching. Yeah. That, I was born into an ordinary socio-economic, in fact, even below, not even really ordinary, even below, if you had to start with something as basic as shelter. But you here. That forms a part of a list of properties you have, meaning it didn't deter you. Yeah. Those things are not mutually exclusive. You did it, it's doable. And how did you do it?
Sure. So for me, buying my mother a home was like the first goal of working. So it was the first major financial role. And I think when I took that decision, I was quite young. It was in my second year. We had lost our home, and I was like, this is going to be something that I want to do as the first thing for my mother. And I took that decision quite young, and I sort of committed to it. So post-graduating, working, that was the first thing on the list of things I wanted to do, is that I want to buy this house. As you know, when you make such decisions, they always come at a price. So you have to delay certain things. So as you said, I don't drive. So that's part of, the why. Why don't I drive? It was a matter of, I can't because I want to do this particular thing first. So the major things were securing a good education for my sister, my little sister, which is the youngest, and then also the home for my family. So it comes at a price of saying, this is my lane. So it goes back to the career question, but I could have, went on the route that was expected of me. I could have decided to buy a car and a house at the same time. But I realized that the accounts won't balance. So sitting comfortably with, with the realization that this won't match, this thing won't make sense in terms of the greater scheme of things. and then saying, I'm going to start with this and then make sure that it's done by this particular time. So for me, bought the house in 2016, and the goal was that I'm going to pay it off in 5 years, right? So that it can open up other things. With my sister also, she joined me in Grahamstown 2015. That was a 5-year journey of high school. So I knew that there's a 5-year timeline of all these things I'm wanting to do for the family. And then after that, other things can kickstart. So it comes at the price, but it also comes at you. You have to make the decision of what the price is for you. So there's prices. I usually say there's a level of tolerance for everyone. So there's things that you like, I can, and then there are things that like, like I really can't at the price of me and having to commute with public transport, which is a huge inconvenience. It's really a huge inconvenience. And as a professional, your time is important. So waiting for takes. What do your students say? I think it starts from having, it starts from just that it doesn't define me. Like it's not like these things, if they were there, they will make me a better person in my view. Maybe someone else's view, they do make me a better person. But for me, it's a question that I've always answered. Why aren't you driving, Tina? Why are you waiting for a cab? I can easily answer that question because I've got an answer for it, that I can't afford the car right now. So if you have the answer for yourself, it's very easy to respond to other people, I think. I think it's very difficult if you're not comfortable with the decision yourself, which I think is the very difficult part of what we term black tax, is that sometimes these decisions, yes, they are for your family, but sometimes they're not sitting well with you. So there's an internal battle that is happening with you. Exactly.
Hence the term black tax.
Yeah. So it's, I think if it comes from a place of I'm wanting to do A, B, and C, and it makes sense that I'm doing A, B, and C. So there are things that I excuse myself from. So for Umzekelo, my sister knows you can't just call me on the 25th and say, there's a teki that I like, here 2,000 rand. What? Where was the budget?
Where is the 2,000 going to come from?
So, but it goes back to your conversation around boundaries. So, talking clearly with people, what is allowed, what is not allowed, what can happen, what cannot happen. So that it doesn't seem like you're this person who is, tense and, you always have to defend your position, but undeniable, it's not there, the money is not there. So that budget was set. It was set, there's my sister's education, there's the house, and those things needed to be done.
Okay. And then I think something that has stood out for me always in your journey is your peer relationships. And this is a big deal for young professionals. The influence that surrounds them. There's a very deliberate team of people around. I don't know if that's always been the case, but there's a very intentional team of people around you that aren't too different actually from the kind of person that you are. Was that a choice? Was that an intentional choice that I'm not going to be in spaces that low-key influence me towards an alternative of the life that I've chosen? Your friendship circles are very in line with the kind of life that you are living. It's people that wouldn't mind sitting on a bucket of paint if you don't have a couch. It's people that are okay with you living at the back of your property. You don't have friendships that place you in a position where you must book people in a hotel now.
Imagine.
And as a matter of fact, your social media is filled with such people, either recipients of the kind of life you've chosen and beneficiaries of your assistance, and people that just literally adore the life you've chosen. There isn't conflict between the life that surrounds you. Did you choose such spaces?
I think we attract who we are.
Okay.
I think we do. I think we sort of, your term is, you have a WhatsApp group of
basically
people that sort of understand, the values you
so basically
uphold.
Materialistic people wouldn't be attracted to you.
I don't think so. I really don't think so, because
Sometimes
I'm going to be an inconvenience sometimes. I'm going to be an inconvenience sometimes. But I do appreciate people who differ a bit from me. So there's a friend of mine, for example, that I appreciate that she makes taking care of herself a priority above all, above like saving, above
yes, girl.
Yeah, no, she makes it a priority. So if, for example, she wants to do a trip, she's gonna do the trip, right? And I think that's something I sometimes need as a balance to this, you know, saver, don't investor that I am. Sometimes I do need someone who's going to say, there's a trip to Mozambique, it's 5,000 rands, let's go. And I don't have to overthink it and say, you know, I want to do this. So to a greater extent, I think my friends and the people I'm around are very similar to me. It was a choice, but it's also
the authenticity.
People see who I am. I'm very open. I'm an oversharer to some extent. So people know who I am from what I talk about. Yes, to say, okay, I can associate myself with this person, or andizolunga, like, because to me, A, B, and C are a priority. But I'm also okay with people who take different decisions from the ones that I've taken, you know, because I know the decisions that I've made, they made sense to me, but not to someone else.
Okay. And another interesting thing that you've mentioned is you set and you decided this is how long this is going to take, and I'm okay with that. But there was an option, and that option was to always use lending facilities to make sure all of these things can happen at the same time. And that's a choice most people go through. The option to have them all at once was there, not with your own money. And that's our conflict, that I want all of these things. So do you. You want a car, and you want a couple of other things, but you decided to defer the gratification of owning those things for later. But the option of having them at the same time with the assistance of institutional money was there. What's your beef with debt?
Now let me correct that. I don't like bad debt.
Bad debt.
Yeah,
yes,
I don't like
actually
bad debt.
Properties are.
I don't like bad debt.
Yeah.
So bad debt to me, it's something that I will buy on debt, and it doesn't bring anything back. So it must be a two-way relationship. So if I'm buying a property through a bond, that property must make money somehow. So for example, with the second property, it was a matter of, I'm going to run a hostel from this main house, and then I'm going to live for free, you know, because I was the brains behind this thing. It better pay me. You know, so there must be that mutual thing of it bringing money, and actually it should bring more money than it's taking. So that's the, you know, the sort of the rule that I use with property. So I invest to ensure that if I pay the bond, I must get the money of the bond from the people, but also more as a form of profit. So for me, yes, you correct to say there was the option of, there's always been, even now, right now, I can go to a
lender,
a car place and say I want this one. But it's always been a matter of, I want to do it in a particular way, and it must resonate with the things that make sense to me, right? So as I said, there were these things that I had goals of. So for example, the property, the 5-year only ends next year. So maybe then I can say the car can come in, maybe with debt or not, no debt, and I'll be okay with it just taking money and not bringing anything, because I've already catered for the other things. Exactly. Yeah. So it was it's always a timing thing about when should it happen. But I also learned quite a lot about debt with family, friends, and things like that.
Because
where you realize,
what insulated you against that.
Sure. I think it's just
you know, financial literacy is a big thing, and it's something close to your heart as an adult, but it hasn't always been there. It's not like you've always had formalized money education that buffered you against this. A mentor is something very new into your space, but you just made this wise choice against the monster and the beast that is bad debt with no real education. Did you have a mentor growing up?
No. No, I didn't, and that's why most of the decisions have been trial and error, right? So pata or pule, and then you're like, oh, oops, and then go to the next thing because you've broken this one and it was a bad decision, right? So I remember this one time at home where I came back and there was a bed bought. So this bed, beautiful bed, you know those ones where you have to jump, climb. And unfortunately, the funds had run out to pay for this bed because it was bought on credit. So we were sitting with a dilemma of this bed is going to be taken by the furniture store. This is after like installments have been paid, you know. And then when I do the calculations, because I'm a numbers person, I'm like, this bed has been bought 2 years back, 400 times, you know. You're like, but wait, the main, like if I went and bought this bed cash, this bed based on the installments would have been finished. Like if I had saved and this bed was bought with those installments, would have been done with the bed. But now we still have to pay. And because also I am the kind of person who's like, I don't care, right? I don't care about Bazutini. So it was very easy for me to say, let them come and fetch the bed. We then take money to buy a new bed. Because now the price of settling the debt was equivalent to buying a new bed, right? And I think what differs from one person to the other is that someone else will be very embarrassed of the action of that bed being fetched from England. I don't care. It's going to be fetched and then another new bed is going to come, right? I don't have to explain myself to my neighbor, but Menwane, this is what's going on. No, right? But we're not all the same, right? We're not all the same. When we had that conversation at home, I could realize that other people were resisting this thing of let it not be taken. And I can understand that people make financial decisions from a very emotional place.
Most of them.
Right? I didn't buy that bed. So the person who bought that bed really feels a very sentimental value to that bed being taken. For me, it's a bed. So we actually paid the amount of a new bed to sit in an old bed because really we were sitting with this uncomfortability that for other people it wasn't an okay choice to actually go and buy a new bed instead of this one. So that was my first experience with debt, right? And then other experiences through, you know, yeah. So for me, I think that one is the one that I think was a light bulb to me. But hey man, we can buy things cash. We really can buy things cash, and other things can actually be bought cash and they can be delayed and bought later. So for example, when we bought my mom's house, we moved in, so we were coming from a different house which was quite smaller. It was an RDP house, so the actual thing that we can actually move, like for the moving, was that bed. It was that bed. It's still there, guys. So it was just that bed. Cupboards were irrelevant because we were moving into a house that had built-in cupboards. So the cupboards that you can actually physically move were irrelevant. Wardrobes were irrelevant. So there was the only physical thing that we can move. So here I am sitting with this beautiful big house that is not furnished. I had the choice to go to OK Furnitures or whatever shop and say, give me a couch, goma here.
Yes.
Room divider. and make the house as beautiful as my mom deserved. But it was a choice of no, Miguel, we're gonna do this. I don't afford to do that. I can't afford to do that. So we're gonna do this very like step by step, right? So if you visited to come and see the new house, spaghetti le paint, sit on it, we chat, you come and view the house, you see it, you're like, 2 baths, you know, 3 bedrooms, but, and then also like the kitchen, it wasn't nice when we moved in, but I told myself I'm going to do this when I've saved up for it. So I think the delaying of a gratification is something that goes hand in hand with financial literacy. So if you can't delay, you're always going to be in an instance of, in actual fact, I can afford this. And afford really means that I can go to a particular store and they can give it to me and then I can pay it later, which I have no problem with that if that's someone's choice. But when you calculate the interest, the amount of interest that you end up paying, it just...
You could have bought more furniture.
Exactly. You could have made more. The rent could have carried you further than what you've done. So what I did with furniture at home, my brother introduced me to auction stores. So we went to auction stores, got nice furniture that's taken from, unfortunately, from people who either were in debt. So this is a circle.
Okay,
it's not a funny one. So it was taken away from other people, still new stuff, sold at less than half the price, right? So cash payments, got the stuff. So I was able to furnish the house in a very short period because of being introduced to this. And I was not that wise in terms of knowing, but okay, there's these stores. My brother was able to introduce me to them. So that was like an alternative way. So someone else would be like, no man, this is my couch. I want it new. I want it from the shop. I don't want to think that was the end I was sitting on this chair. So it really is about, yes, it is about, do you hold these things so dear to you that you can't make, a little bit of sacrifice? Yeah.
We're almost out of time, but I'm willing to stretch this one because of the significance. And I want you to talk a little bit about the Stockville. And I'm bringing the Stockville because most of us make money, we get money, but there's very little of it we get to keep.
Yeah.
And that's the problem most of us have. We are paying, we have money, but you're not keeping any of it. It comes into your bank account and it goes out. And things like investment portfolios are so elusive in people's minds. But there is real life common sense alternatives. And the Stockville has been a good one of those. I don't want to talk about the Stockville because I only joined the Stockville later through you. Yeah. What was the idea behind the Stockville? Because the Stockville is a long-standing tradition amongst our culture. Take us through the progress of the Stockville. Okay. Because I want to say progress because I think but there's been beautiful progress with the Stockville. We were just reviewing it just yesterday. Yeah. And I don't think it's a concept people have in their head that you can keep your money, and there's ways where you can train yourself to keep it, and they don't need to be as fancy as being institutionalized, which most people struggle with. They don't have a good relationships with banks, but there's other ways to keep money, and that's what saving is
about.
And it helps people track where their money is going, and I think it just does something to your psyche when you feel like you've been able to keep some of it.
Correct. So for me, I've always been a believer of pay yourself first. So before you can pay the bank for whatever, so it's about a bond or a car installment or whatever. So I think there is something about us paying ourselves first because we do all the hard work, right? So for me, saving and investment comes into that. It comes from a point of view of let's acknowledge the fact that we put in all the hard work. So Stockvilles have been existing, as you're saying. For me, I grew up around Stockvilles. I was going with umakhulu to these societies where they'll meet every Sunday or every month end to, collect the money as a collective. And for them, it was mostly around groceries. It was mostly around back as a Christmas for the kids and whatnot. So for us it was, let's take that same model, because what that model does is that it allows Uziana not to do this alone. So you're doing this as a collective. So there's a sense of accountability of I had promised that I'm going to save this much money every month, right? So other people do struggle with discipline when it comes to money. So the Stockville actually is a helpful platform as a discipline measure. So that's where it started. So we started 2017. So most of my things start through Facebook posts. So I really literally posted on Facebook that, okay, can we explore something like this? And people were keen, and we started basically like that. Started in 2017. So this is the 4th year of the Stockville existing, and next year we're actually taking it to a very different level. Very different level. The unfortunate thing with Stockvilles is that banks they actually use Stockvilles against us, right? I actually think that banks want us to invest alone because they can see that we're not good at it. So when we are collective, they actually pinch us with the interest. So we're actually wanting to look at better ways of taking that money and investing it better to generate higher returns. But it has never been about the returns. It was always about creating the discipline. Yeah, creating a discipline around common ground. So it's always an agreed amount of money monthly. We started off with 1,000 odd. Now it's 2.5 per month. But the interesting has always been that people don't always save the minimum.
They surpass.
People in that group, guys. People people in that group, we actually had aimed at the end of this year to reach a
1
million.
million rand.
And we're like,
it's surpassed already.
End of June, it's there.
Surpassed already.
Popile, you know, and it's always like, you know, being in a group of with a group of people that have a common goal. And you know what you're wanting to do. So what's different also about us is that we don't necessarily boss you around what you do with your money at the end of the day. So we don't say we are saving for couches. So Zianda, when you have bought your couches, take a picture of us. So you can, if you want to say, I'm saving for a Euro trip, guys. I just want to do a Euro tour, and that's what I'm saving for, and that's okay, right? So it's been a platform that's great for things like that. So yeah, we're taking it to a new level next year.
Amazing stuff. So I'm sorry, guys. I know you guys would love to have Tina here extensively. So would I. But we're going to have to wrap it up there. But I don't know what better way I can express what a breath of fresh air it is to have a practical example of the stuff that is normally recommended in theory, and a practical guide of the road they have walked, so that you can believe beyond reasonable doubt that this road is walkable. And this, in isolation, we've condensed them now, but they're so comprehensive as little parts. Tina's hostel is doing brilliant work, brilliant transformative work, and I think the group of kids that go through that incubation process are going to be a different club of humans altogether. So I do wish here expansion, because if we can have kids that are that ready, that sharp, that critical in terms of thinking, and that ready for the world, we would begin to do better. So my groups does that. She attracts people as far as different provinces to travel all the way to Grahamstown to get a complete student experience. You know, not just go to school, come back, eat, go to bed. And if you watch the my group's Facebook page, I think you would want to redo high school. It gives you that feeling where you're like, had I just had that opportunity, I'd be a different class of human altogether. So is the township days, because an auction, guys, and it's a complete experience of being a varsity student. You know, you've got Wi-Fi, it looks beautiful, it looks clean, it doesn't give you, I mean, the dangers of the township vibes, you know, so I'm not going to have the road student experience. No, they have a full-on student experience. She's a full-time lecturer. Teaching is her thing. She just taught now on this channel. She teaches on radio. She's invited to different platforms, and she teaches all the way through in all of the things that she owns. That's the quality of human that she is. So I want you to almost contextualize the advice that you've just received, and where it's coming from and what has informed it. And such people exist. Tina didn't, you know, be incubated in a lab and she was doctored with beautiful ingredients that make her ready for this life thing and just get it right. And it kicks her ass, like, thoroughly. You know, don't think, yes, like, girl, you are just winning at this life thing. No, it kicks her ass thoroughly. As such, I'm sad we didn't get to the mentorship part, but she's very open in her social media platform. In her mentorship journey is something that she openly talks about. But I think even her giving this time to us is of mentorship to whoever is willing to take the advice. But anyway, there's autonomy on this channel. Take it, don't take it. It aims as being part of yet another resource that you guys can have in navigating your own personal journey. And when we are back, we are going to be talking about the implications of the money decisions and black tax. I'm going to do it a bit differently by actually using that conversation to be therapeutic to the people that are stifled by their moral responsibility towards families and issue permission slips. Tina did it. She paid dues to black tax, and she didn't feel taxed by it because of the mechanisms she put in place. Because the conflict is that the need in black families is real, and the limitations we have, because we live in a recession, economic times are tough, and the cost of living keeps on doubling. So that limitation is also real, and marrying these two realities, the need to help and the paralysis of being unable to. And that's what we will be discussing, how to resolve that conflict, because it's a dire conflict and accounts for a large part of black mental health. These people exist. These very black people exist. These people that start on the back foot in terms of social economics can make it out. And I encourage you guys to pick your tribe and fill your life with as many of these people as you possibly can. Things as little as who you join a stokvel with are a psychological transformation. Just seeing somebody putting in a stokvel 20,000 in a month, and they're not wealthy, they have an ordinary job, it makes you rethink your choices, audit your own lifestyle. It makes you live to the promise of the quality of these people and want to be like them. None of us are immune to influence, but you can use influence to your benefit. So I hope I did you guys justice, because that's what I aim to do. Thank you, Tish, so much, my friend. I feel the conversation was therapeutic. She looks like the girl next door. That's my favorite thing about it, but she's definitely not the girl from next door. She's bloody next level. But she looks like me and you, so you don't have to distance yourself as if this is a thing that can be achieved by the other. No, very achievable by a home girl. Mama. Mama otherwise. Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it. This co-creation is something that I hope we can continue in different platforms. We will try to appear, guys, as listen, gather your squad. Gather your squad, you know,
make it happen.
And make it happen. Make it happen. I don't think I would have been able to get anywhere close to R1 million as an individual, but when I saw those reviews from the Stockful, and it made me feel like I'm part of a generation that has now. And 2020 has been bad. And
you start believing it for yourself. You're like,
hold
on, I've seen R1 million in the Stockful account. Where am I?
R1 million. So I'm sorry that we dragged it for a bit longer than the usual time, but I think you'll forgive me in terms of the value that you got. These are your people. You've got the same flesh and blood as them, and you can do it. And you're not too late. If you're on the wrong path, you can do an about turn. Right about now and start rebuilding. What this evidence is that merit always pays off. It always pays off. She's in year 4 now of that 5th year journey that's about to pay that bond, and she's right on track. So the wait does pay off. Deferring gratification does pay off. And if you can believe that for yourself, I hope that encourages you to start changing your own financial culture. Love you guys, and I will see you in the difficult black text conversation next time. Drop your conversations so that we include you and represent your needs when we film that. And I will see you in the next one. Say bye, Tish. Bye to the people.